I see this as the section where we'll evaluate our understanding of the SKlearn base module. We'll check if our answers to the quiz questions are correct. Let's see how well you understand these concepts. I'm excited to see your results. This is the section where the actual quiz questions are presented. It sets the stage for testing your knowledge of the SKlearn base module. Each question will focus on a different aspect of the core classes in SKlearn. Let's dive right in. This statement describes the base estimator class. I explained that this class is fundamental to all SKlearn estimators, providing a standard structure, but it doesn't enforce specific methods like fit and predict. However, adhering to the standard structure suggests the methods. Think of it as a guideline, not a rigid rule. This focuses on the regressor mixin class. I confirm that inheriting classes will automatically get a score method, which calculates the R² by default. It's a convenient way to add this functionality. Pretty neat, huh? Here, I'm explaining transformer mixin. I'm verifying that it automatically adds a transform method to any class that uses it. This simplifies feature transformation in your code. It's a really handy tool. Finally, we have classifier mixin. I emphasize that this doesn't strictly require a predict proba method. Although common, it's not mandatory for classifier implementation. It's about flexibility and not enforcing unnecessary things. It's all about balance in design. This is the core question of the quiz. It frames the context and the key concepts for you to assess. Let's see how many you get right. I believe in you. This is the title of the quiz. It's a clear indication that the focus is on testing knowledge of SKlearn's base module. Get ready to showcase your knowledge. Let the quizzing begin. I'm explaining the possible answers to the multiple choice question about the SKlearn base module. We need to carefully consider each option to determine whether it accurately reflects the behavior of the classes within this module. Let's figure out which statements are correct. This statement says that base estimator in SKlearn provides a consistent way to interact with all the different estimators. It's like having a standard set of tools for all the machine learning models. It doesn't force every estimator to have fit and predict methods, but it makes it a strong expectation. That's crucial for predictable behavior within SKlearn. So, I think it's a true statement. The statement claims that transformer mixin adds a transform method. This means if you build your own estimator and use transformer mixin you automatically gain a transform method without any extra work. It is like magic. This makes your life easier. So, it's a true statement. Here, we're told that regressor mixin automatically provides a score method for regression models. By default, this calculates the R² value. That's a very common metric to assess regression model performance. Therefore, this is a true statement. This last option states that classifier mixin requires a predict proba method. This method calculates the probability of each class. However, that's not quite right. While many classifiers use predict proba it's not a strict requirement for the classifier mixin. The mixin mainly adds a score method, but it doesn't force every inheriting class to have predict proba. So, this is false. This is the core question driving our analysis of the SKlearn base module. It prompts us to select the correct assertions. The process of evaluating each statement is key to understanding the fundamental components of the library. The core of the question involves an understanding of the base classes that structure the SKlearn library. It provides the foundation for all the various types of models and functionalities, establishing a consistent API for usage. I'm focusing on the core part of SKlearn, the SKlearn base module. This module provides the foundational building blocks for creating machine learning models in SKlearn. It's like the base camp for all your SKlearn adventures. I see. This is a multiple choice question testing your knowledge of classes in the SKlearn base module. You'll need to identify which statements accurately describe these classes and their behavior. Let's dive in and see what you know. I'd say that base estimator is like a blueprint. It doesn't force specific methods, but it establishes a standard structure for all estimators. It encourages consistency. You expect estimators that inherit from it to have fit and predict methods, or similar methods depending on task. This is a mixin, a special type of class. Transformer mixin automatically adds a transform method to any class inheriting from it. This simplifies the implementation of feature transformations. It's like adding a handy new tool to your toolbox. Regressor mixin is another mixin that adds a score method for regression models. By default, the score method calculates R². It makes calculating performance metrics easy for regression models. Now, this statement is tricky. Classifier mixin suggests using predict proba for probability predictions, but it doesn't force you to implement it. A classifier can be created without predict proba. It's a good practice, but not a requirement. Okay, now you need to select the true statements from the previous options. You are looking for the statements that accurately reflect the behavior of those scikit-learn classes. Good luck. This quiz tests your knowledge of the core classes within scikit-learn's SKlearn base module. I'll be asking you to identify the functionalities of key classes like base estimator transformer mixin regressor mixin and classifier mixin Get ready. This is the main question. You'll select all the true statements about the classes within the SKlearn base module. I'm testing your understanding of how these classes work together. Let's see what you know. This statement checks if you understand that base estimator forms the foundation of all scikit-learn estimators. I expect you to recognize that it aims to create consistency in methods like fit and predict which are used for training and making predictions, respectively. Here, I'm testing if you grasp the role of transformer mixin It's a mixin, a class designed to be inherited from, that automatically gives any class it inherits into a transform method. This method is used for data transformation. This tests if you know that regressor mixin adds a score method. This method is used to calculate a performance metric, usually R², for regression models. Remember, R² measures the goodness of fit of the model. This probes your understanding of classifier mixin I'm particularly interested in whether you know that it doesn't force the implementation of predict proba While it's usually there for probability predictions, it isn't mandatory. This is where you submit your answers. I hope you've done well. Good luck. This is a quiz testing your knowledge of core classes in scikit-learn's SKlearn base module. I'll be asking you to identify the correct statements about these classes and their functionalities. This section will show you the results of the quiz once you've completed it. You'll see which answers you got right and wrong. This is the main quiz question. I'm looking for your understanding of 4 key classes. Base estimator transformer mixin regressor mixin and classifier mixin I want you to select all the statements that are true about how these classes work together within scikit-learn. This statement is about base estimator I want to know if you understand that it provides a standard structure for all scikit-learn estimators, implying that child classes should have methods like fit and predict even though it doesn't explicitly enforce them. This is about transformer mixin It tests if you know that this mixin automatically adds the transform method, allowing for feature transformations in machine learning. It's an important tool for data preprocessing. This is about regressor mixin This statement checks whether you understand that the score method, which by default calculates R², a measure of how well a regression model fits the data, is added automatically to any class that inherits from regressor mixin This statement focuses on classifier mix-in . I'm asking if you know whether the predict_proba method, which gives class probabilities, is mandatory for classes using this mix-in. I will look for understanding that while it's a common practice, it's not strictly required. This is a quiz testing your understanding of the fundamental classes within the scikit-learn library's SKlearn base module. We'll explore the roles of several key classes. Let's get started. This question asks you to identify correct statements about 4 specific classes: base estimator transformer mix-in regressor mix-in and classifier mix-in . Each class plays a unique role in building and using machine learning models in scikit-learn. Pay close attention to what each class does. I will say, base estimator establishes a standard structure for all scikit-learn estimators. While it doesn't force specific methods, it sets the expectation that estimators will have methods like fit for training, and predict for making predictions. Think of it as a blueprint encouraging consistency across models. This one's straightforward. Transformer mix-in is a special type of class that automatically gives any class that inherits from it a transform method. The transform method is used for modifying data, making it a key part of data pre-processing steps. Here, regressor mix-in provides a score method specifically designed for regression models. By default, this calculates the R-squared, a common measure of how well the model fits the data. It's all about automatically giving regression models a standard way to evaluate their performance. I'll explain. Classifier mix-in often, but not always, adds a predict_proba method, which gives the probability of different classifications. However, it's important to note that it doesn't actually demand that inheriting classes implement this method. A classifier can be built without directly having predict_proba . This instruction tells you to choose every correct statement. This is a multiple-choice question that needs more than one answer. This is where you'll write down the letters corresponding to the statements you believe to be correct. Remember only to select the ones that are completely accurate.